Brace yourself for a roller coaster of emotions as we explore the harrowing tales of 4 young lives forever changed by unthinkable actions. These teenage offenders paid the ultimate price for their unforgivable crimes, receiving tragic sentences that will leave you speechless. On June 26, 2013, Texas summarily marked a milestone in its criminal justice history by executing its 500th inmate since reinstating capital punishment in 1982. Kimberly McCarthy, sentenced to death for murdering her 71-year-old neighbor, became the first woman executed in the US in almost 3 years. McCarthy, 52, was convicted for the 1997 robbery, assault, and fatal stabbing of retired college psychology professor Dorothy Booth. Booth had agreed to give McCarthy a cup of sugar before being attacked with a butcher knife and candelabra in her Lancaster home. Authorities say McCarthy severed Booth's fingers to take her wedding ring. McCarthy, a former nursing home therapist, was linked to 3 slayings and developed a crack cocaine addiction. Her final federal appeal was denied in July of 2012. Her lawyers filed a petition with the US Supreme Court, which was rejected in January 2013. Her execution date was initially set for January 29, 2013. Mere hours before her scheduled lethal injection, she received a stay. Her execution was rescheduled for April 3, 2013. In late March, the Dallas County District Attorney announced that the date had been moved to June 26, 2013.
At one time had more people on death row than any other county. I've had a lot of the appeals. I think a lot of the issues concerning future dangerousness stemmed around the fact of whether or not a person would be a danger in prison or out of prison. And now that we have a vehicle to keep a person in prison for the balance of their lives, it just changes the equation.
At last, the day came. She was declared dead at 6:37 p.m., 20 minutes after Texas prison officials started administering a solitary lethal dose of pentobarbital. In her final words, McCarthy didn't mention her position as the 500th inmate executed or acknowledge Booth or her family. She stated, "This is not a loss. This is a win. You know where I'm going. I'm going home to be with Jesus. Keep the faith. I love you all." She continually looked towards the witnesses, including her lawyer, spiritual advisor, and ex-husband, new Black Panther Party founder Aaron Michaels. As the drug began taking effect, McCarthy uttered, "God is great," before shutting her eyes. She drew hard, raspy, loud breaths for several seconds before going silent. Her chest continued moving up and down for another minute before she ceased breathing. She lies buried at Captain Joe Byrd Cemetery, Texas' primary prison cemetery. Lisa Ann Coleman was convicted and fatally punished by the state of Texas in 2014. Coleman was sentenced for her role of slaying a 9-year-old boy named Devontae Williams, who was the son of her girlfriend, Marcella Williams. The slaying took place in 2004, where Coleman and Marcella Williams were living together in Texas. According to court records, Coleman physically harmed Devontae on multiple occasions, and the boy was found deceased in their apartment in July of that year. Coleman was convicted of the capital slaying in 2006 and sentenced. Her appeals were unsuccessful, and she was punished by lethal injection on September 17, 2014. Coleman spent her final days on death row at Mountain View Unit Prison in Gatesville, Texas.
She's had a chance to visit with relatives, spiritual advisor, attorneys today. She has had an opportunity to make some phone calls if she wants to some other people, and so that's how her day has gone so far.
During the days preceding her execution, Coleman's legal team made several last resort appeals to the courts, attempting to postpone or reverse her sentence. They claim her trial suffered from significant flaws and that newly discovered evidence could exculpate her. Despite these endeavors, Coleman's appeals were denied, and her execution proceeded as planned. In the hours before her execution, Coleman received visits from various family members and supporters, including her spiritual advisor, Reverend Carol Pickett. According to Pickett, Coleman remained very peaceful in the hours before her death. He noted that they spent time praying and reflecting, with Coleman concentrating on the message of forgiveness and the reconciling with those she had harmed. In her final words, Coleman apologized to Devontae Williams' family and expressed remorse for her involvement in his death. She stated, "I never wanted to cause you pain. I hope that one day you can forgive me." Lisa Montgomery, the sole female inmate on death row in the US at the time, was executed for a murder. She was given a lethal injection at Terre Haute, Indiana prison after the US Supreme Court lifted a last-minute stay of execution. The execution was delayed twice, initially by COVID-19, then by a judge, until the Supreme Court decision allowed it to proceed. In dramatic late action, an Indiana judge had halted the planned injection until a mental competency hearing could occur. Her attorneys argued that Montgomery, born with brain damage, was too mentally ill for such a punishment. As a child, she was consistently physically abused by her father and trafficked by her mother. Relatives said her experiences were so violent they amounted to torture. Her lawyer claimed her defense team believed Montgomery was psychotic and disconnected from reality during her crime. This view is supported by 41 current and former attorneys and human rights organizations like the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. However, her victim's family and friends argue that Montgomery's heinous acts justify her execution, regardless of her mental state. The 52-year-old strangled a pregnant woman and then cut out and abducted her baby in Missouri in 2004. Her victim, 23-year-old Bobby Jo Stinnett, bled to death, but the baby was safely recovered and returned to her family. Montgomery was the first female federal inmate executed by the US government in 67 years. According to witnesses, a woman standing beside Montgomery during the procedure removed the inmate's face mask and inquired if she had any final words. Montgomery replied no and uttered nothing more. She was declared dead shortly thereafter.
That's the part that bothers me the most is she didn't get the chance to be a mom. I know she would have been an amazing mom, because she had an amazing mom.
Their future and how they're going to end it because they want to take something from you.
Her attorney, Kelly Henry, stated that all those involved in Montgomery's death should feel remorse. She said, "The government pursued every avenue to end the life of this broken and delusional woman. Lisa Montgomery's execution was far from justice. In her final days, Lisa experienced hallucination of her abusive mother's voice within her prison cell, endured nightmares of the physical torment she suffered, and retreated into a mental sanctuary, just as she did while attempting to survive the physical abuse she faced as a younger teenager." Kelly Renee Grisander, a condemned murderer and the first woman executed in Georgia, US in 70 years, was found guilty of killing her husband, Douglas Grisander, in 1998. After nearly 2 decades on death row, she faced her demise. Grisander's last day stirred strong emotions for her and her supporters. She awaited her fate at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison and was visited by family members and advocates, including her 3 children, mother, and spiritual advisor. Her children received special permission to see her, while her mother and advisor called her. Grisander reportedly prayed and reflected on her life. She shared her aspirations for her children's future, urging them to pursue education and make a positive difference in the world. Reverend Kathy Zappa, Grisander's spiritual advisor, shared their final conversation's peaceful tone and her focus on forgiveness and regret for the harm she caused. Grisander's lawyers attempted a last-minute sentence commutation by appealing to Georgia Supreme Court, claiming her punishment was unconstitutional since she didn't commit the murder. Despite this, her execution proceeded as planned, and she died at 12:21 a.m. on September 30th, 2015 from a lethal injection.